Ladies and gentlemen, and those of you who may fall into another category that may not be ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I love the energy I was going to say the room, but the tent. I love the fact that so many people from across the state of Michigan have come here tonight to hear the candidates for the mayoral spot for Michigan's largest and most important city, the great city of Detroit. I also want to thank you all for being part of this 44-year history of the Mackinac Policy Conference. The Mackinac Policy Conference and this tent are embodiment of what we are trying to do year after year, which is to bring civility and cooperation to our state, to our region, and to our city. And the fact that you are here and that you're supporters of the Mackinac Policy Conference tell me that you all share that value. This tent, which I've come to call the civility tent, because it is the tent in which my dear friends Nolan, Finley, and Stephen Henderson have created something called, I can't remember what the alcohol is, but it was some night of alcohol that we would all come together, different parties, different parts of the state, to celebrate civility, discussion, and cooperation. This tent is also the site of many Detroit Regional Chamber sponsored debates. Most recently, for the last gubernatorial election on this very stage in this very tent. And this year, I am delighted that we're able to use this tent to host candidates for the mayoral spot in the city of Detroit. I also want to provide an apology of sorts, if you will, to the mayoral candidates that were invited. Number one, we weren't sure, as you can imagine, we're not event planners at the Detroit Regional Chamber. We love this event. It's a labor of love. We weren't sure we had the real estate, physical real estate, the time real estate, agenda real estate, to be able to pull this off. And we were actually planning on doing this back home in Detroit. But there was so much interest in the mayoral debate that we found a way. And so our candidates who are going to appear on this stage this evening got relatively late notice because we know they're busy. We know they're very busy with their day jobs, and we also know they're very busy with their campaign jobs. So in advance, let's give our candidates who will appear tonight a round of applause to thank them for making this in. Now, when we decided that we were able to pull this off, there was no question that we would couple it with Civility Night in the tent. So, two things. Number one, after our public servants and those who are seeking public office are done with their discussions with Nolan and Stephen, please stay. Please stay, because tonight is an act in two parts. It's a little bit like a two-part play on Broadway. Part one is politics. And my friends Nolan, Finley, and Stephen Henderson will moderate tonight's debate. As the debate ends, our candidates will depart. They will be talking to the media. Apparently that's important if you're running for office. Okay, that was funnier than you're giving me credit for. It's like, geez. It's like, I know it's Thursday, you're all tired. But we're going to roll directly into our civility night, our tradition civility night. And it'll be, Nolan, Stephen, myself, and some guy who used to be on TV named Devin Skillion. Anyone remember him? And by popular demand, the sing-along will be back. So, after the debate, we're going to roll right into civility night. You're going to see a lot of folks kind of doing a lot of things on this stage, but we're going to have a great night. And with that, I am delighted to welcome two amazing journalists, two amazing public figures, and frankly, two people I am proud to call friend. Nolan Finley, Stephen Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's mayoral debate up here on Mackinac Island. We are live with the candidates who want to lead our city into its next chapter.
Okay. Before we begin, here's how tonight's debate will work. I'm going to go over some rules with you. First of all, I want to say for this debate, no kicking, no biting, no scratching. Okay? There'll be no opening remarks from the candidates tonight. Some of the questions will go to all three candidates, while others will go to select groups of three, but we've balanced this out so all of the candidates will get to answer the same amount of questions. Once all selected candidates have answered, they'll get a 30-second rebuttal in the same order in which they spoke. If a candidate who wasn't asked a question is mentioned derogatorily by name, that candidate will get a 30-second rebuttal immediately after at the moderator's discretion. But candidates, we ask you please remember the voters want to hear from you and about your campaign and what your plans are for moving Detroit forward. So please be respectful and avoid personal attacks on your fellow candidates. At the end of the question and answer period, each candidate will get a 45-second closing statement. Now we're using a lighting system to help candidates track their time. Yellow means there are 15 seconds left, and red means your time is up. And with that, let's get started and introduce the candidates.
Okay, first to the stage is James Craig.
Thank you.
Next is Fred Durhal. And Saunteel Jenkins. Solomon Kinloch. And Mary Sheffield. Okay, we've selected the order in which the candidates will answer the questions by random draw. That order will be Saunteel Jenkins, Fred Durhal, Solomon Kinloch, James Craig, and then Mary Sheffield. First question. This is a policy conference, largely framed around business and philanthropic interests. So, what is the role that you think the business community should be playing in Detroit right now? And how would you manage tools like tax credits and other incentives to lure or keep businesses in the city? This question goes to all five candidates, starting with Saunteel Jenkins.
Thank you for the question. First, I think it's really important that the new mayor focus on the fact that a majority of tax abatements will start expiring in 27. By the year 2030, over half of the tax abatements will have expired. So we will need to retool this tool in order to extend those abatements. Otherwise, we'll start to lose businesses, we'll start to lose jobs. And the role of business is twofold. It's creating jobs, it's driving, it's an economic driver, and it is also their corporate citizenship should help to move the city forward in other ways. We need a mayor who knows how to partner with business to solve some of the issues that the city is and will face as we're moving forward. So that's the role of business, and that's the role that I will play, partnering with business as mayor.
Okay, next up, Fred Durhal.
Thank you, and good evening to you all. It's simple. The role that business has played in the revitalization of the city of Detroit is huge. We've got to continue public-private partnerships, but we've got to continue using the tools to develop our city. We're not done yet. So one of the issues that we are facing is the abatement cliff, which is a serious issue. And so, yes, we will look to restructure the abatement cliff by spreading out what those tools are and the length of those abatements. But here's a key and a point that we can use. We can utilize, as we spread out the length of that abatement, an opportunity to opt in and generate revenue earlier for our city by allowing developers as well as those who have built there to pay a little bit early. And that'll add more money and revenue to our general fund here. But we've got to continue to grow the city of Detroit. When you talk about business, you just can't wake up in the morning and support business and development. You're going to need a mayor that has a proven track record of supporting development, and that's who we are, and we'll continue to do that as mayor.
Okay, next is Solomon Kinloch.
Well, thank you all for giving me the extension of the invitation to be here tonight. I'm excited to be a part of this panel. One of the things that we have to remember is that the mayoral office does not just cast vision, it also communicates that vision, and it also convenes a table in order to bring stakeholders together. We have to make sure that businesses are not the only stakeholders at the table, that we are calling together neighborhood leaders, we're calling together the philanthropic community, because we want to ensure that residents feel as much a part of the community as anyone else. I believe that businesses need to understand that they are welcome and that this is a city that's receptive to business. And we are willing to work with anybody that is willing to invest in the future health of the city. I believe that we should continue to do that as long as those business leaders are willing to work with the citizens of Detroit.
Okay, James Craig, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here today, and thank you for the invitation. Certainly, we have to focus on growing our middle class. You know, I talk a lot about, growing small businesses, but that doesn't take away from continuing to grow big businesses. We have got to raise revenues in this city. But the real, and it's been said already, we have to collaborate, and we have to continue to push forward. If we're going to grow our middle class, we have got to be a business-friendly city. And one of the things that I've heard as chief and deputy mayor over the time is that in many of the neighborhoods, they feel left out. They feel left out, the businesses feel left out. As chief of police, as you know, I leveraged working very closely with small business, and that was the gas stations, the liquor stores. The Green Light Project was widely successful. We will continue to do that because it's important. So yes, I am business friendly. We'll continue to work very hard to keep that relationship together, not dismissing the importance of drawing large corporations continuing into our city.
Okay, next is Mary Sheffield.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. And so I'm a firm believer that business needs people and people need business. My entire decade serving on the city council, I've tried to bridge that gap and bring the two together to ensure that we're moving Detroit in a positive direction. There is no doubt that the growth of our city largely was due to the public-private partnerships that we've been able to partner and form here in the city of Detroit. And so our business community, our corporate sectors are going to have to continue to contribute to the overall growth of our city. As it relates to fostering a more business-friendly environment, I do believe is needed. When it comes to tax abatements, my number one issue is addressing the core of why we have to abate in the first place. And that is because we pay some of the highest property taxes in the country. And so my goal, day one, which we're laying the foundation now, is to ensure that we're addressing real structural property tax reform so that we do not have to continue to abate our way out of the issues that we have in Detroit. But I do believe that business is the economic engine of our city. They provide jobs, they provide housing, and they provide vibrancy within our neighborhoods and the economic vibrancy that we want. And they must remain partners, and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of us of them as we continue to move forward.
Okay, let's follow up on that question. In your views, what has the current administration of Mike Duggan gotten right when it comes to business and development and investment, and what has it got wrong? What would you change? And the first question, the first candidate for that question is Saunteel Jenkins.
Yes, Mayor Duggan has definitely done a good job of attracting business. Coming out of the bankruptcy, he did a great job of rebuilding confidence and investing in the city of Detroit and rebuilding some of those partnerships and expanding jobs and our economic engine in the city of Detroit. Now what we have to do is make sure that we're doing the same thing in neighborhoods. We need to make sure that there is a commercial corridor in each of the 7 districts. We have to ensure that our planning is intentional and that it is inclusive. And when we are having discussions about tax abatements, discussions about affordable housing, we have a real plan in place that is driving development and affordable housing and public transit in a way that is building our neighborhoods. And we also have to include schools.
Fred Durhal, what do you think?
What I would say is I think the mayor has done a tremendous job of laying, the groundwork for the next mayor to come in. We've stabilized neighborhoods. We've had some historic crime rates that have dropped in over 30 years. We've built over $1 billion in affordable housing, and I think it's also necessary to recognize that council has played an instrumental role in that as well. But we're that phoenix that has been rising from the ashes. We got to make sure that it doesn't fly into the window. So what we need to do is to continue to invest in affordable housing, continue to invest in development. But what nobody's talking about when we talk about comprehensive property tax reform, all of those roads lead through Lansing. And you're not going to have to use the GPS if you've already been there to get there to deliver back here to the city of Detroit. So when we take our plans to Lansing, we're going to lower property taxes. We're going to work on preemption to give our city the ability to have the determination of our future. And I think we can have a better job of delivering from Lansing to continue Detroit's growth. You're going to need that experienced leadership to continue that growth.
And Solomon Kinloch?
I don't think anyone has to herald Mike Duggan's successes and achievement. Mike Duggan is an effective communicator. He's able to do that in a wonderful way.
As we saw today.
As we saw today. But one of the things that we have to look at is the fact that while we've come from a dark place of dismal debt, we have to admit the fact that although Mike Duggan has done a lot, he could not, and no one could not do everything. He gave us a great fiscal foundation for us to do bigger and bold. And I believe that we are at a crossroad, because when you look at the numbers and see that the majority of the electorate is not even engaged in the democratic process, we have to be open and receptive to trying something different and trying something new. And one of those things is prioritizing neighborhoods and dealing with homelessness and poverty and bringing equitable jobs to the community so people can not only just survive but thrive.
James Gregg?
Yeah, as has already been said, Mayor Duggan did a phenomenal job. He came in just after me. Certainly, it was probably one of the most challenging times in Detroit's history. Certainly, there were a lot going on, but he certainly did a great job at dealing with the basics, street lights, and those kind of things. But also, what comes to mind for me is when he was able to get an automobile manufacturing plant built here in Detroit, Stellantis on the east side, first time in 30 years, and negotiating getting 3,500 Detroiters hired for that. But as we continue to move forward, what we need to do now, we know, it's been articles written on, it's 77 steps to open up a restaurant. That's just too much. Why is it? The red tape bureaucracy does not work. Even in normal business situations, opening up a regular business, sometimes individuals have to wait a couple of years. So we have to do better, because as we continue to make our city business friendly, that's going to stabilize our property taxes. It's going to keep it lower. If we can't draw business into the city, then guess what? We got a problem, because the taxes are going to pay for work, those essential services like police, fire, and infrastructure. We have got to do it. So part of my plan is to decentralize what's going on as it relates to zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
okay.
Your time is up. Mary Sheffield.
Thank you. So I think it's important to mention again that as we talk about the success of Mayor Duggan, that nothing would have been accomplished had it not been the partnership of this council, the leadership that I've done on chairing this body within the last 4 years. And so I'm glad to have been a partner in the growth of our city. But without a doubt, we know that the foundation has been laid, but there's still far too many issues that our city is dealing with, one of which is poverty. I think we have to continue to improve in boosting our middle class, raising the income levels of Detroiters. We have a median income around $38,000 compared to the state of Michigan, which is around, I think, $70,000. So we have to make sure that people here are not just getting by, but actually thriving in Detroit. Without a doubt, we have to ensure that more investment comes back into our neighborhoods and that we're activating our commercial corridors. I'm very excited for my administration to be way more hands-on as it relates to the education of our youth. We heard a lot during this conference about the strategic plan of academics in Detroit and how the mayor's office can have better involvement in that. And so when we talk about growing our city, building our middle class, and ensuring that Detroit is a destination of opportunity, we have to invest more in education and our workforce, creating a pipeline that is ready for the jobs that are coming for today and of tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Sheffield. We appreciate it.
30-second rebuttals to the candidates. We'll start with Saunteel Jenkins.
Sure. I think that when we talk about building our middle class, we have to make sure that we are creating an environment where business has confidence in leadership, where we know that we'll make it a place that's easy for everyone to do business. So yes, we talk about cutting red tape, but it's also about leadership. Leadership that we can trust. We have to have leadership where business knows if I sit down with you today and we have a deal, it won't change tomorrow. We have to have leadership that is going to build coalitions.
Thank you.
Fred Durhal.
Fred Durhal.
Yeah, what I would say is we have to create a level of predictability for developers and business here in the city of Detroit. I'll give you an example. We have folks that come to us for abatements, right? We have a community benefits ordinance in a process, and they go through the entire process. And by the time they get there, this is hung up at council, and the project becomes $2 to $3 million more expensive than it was when it started. That's not a way to do business here in the city of Detroit without creating a level of predictability. You know, we do want to cut more red tape so we can cut more red ribbons here in the city of Detroit, but you have to have a
Red
healthy
lights,
business
sir.
environment.
Thank you.
Solomon Kinloch.
One of the things that we have to consider is that when we're in rooms like this, we have people that can communicate and articulate for themselves, and they can express and protect their interests. But the question becomes, who's protecting and speaking and communicating for the people who are not in the room? We have to have somebody at the table that understands that we've been talking about this stuff too long. We need to stop talking about it and doing it.
Thank you. And
James Craig.
Yes.
And I would just emphasize again, we talk about streamlining so that we can draw more, make the city more business friendly. My plan called CityStat, which is derived from ComStat, a process of accountability and transparency that I brought to the police department. That will work and can work. As mayor, we certainly will see a major difference.
And Mary Sheffield.
Yeah, I'll just say, you know, past performance is a great indicator of how you will show up presently. I've led this city council. We have not just talked, but we have made significant changes in improving the climate of business in Detroit. And without a doubt, we do have to foster a more business-friendly climate in this city to ensure that we continue the economic growth of Detroit. I'm committed to doing so, and I'm looking forward to working with all of the partners here to ensure that it works, not just for business, but for people, because both can coexist at the same time.
Okay, the next question goes to Solomon Kinloch, Fred Durhal, and Saunteel Jenkins in that order. I think a lot of times when we're talking about business and the business community, we are thinking about places like downtown and midtown, but of course, business exists far outside of those neighborhoods. When I was a kid, for example, my grandmother used to be able to take us over to Dexter, near her house in Russell Woods, where she could find everything she needed to run her household. The hardware store, the cleaners, the hairdresser, all of it. We don't have that anymore in most of our neighborhoods. So, two-part question. Could you bring that back to more spaces in Detroit? And if you think you can, tell us how.
I believe we're leaving too much resource and relationships on the table. We have some of the greatest corporate partners, philanthropic partners, community partners. And I believe that we need to convene the table where we're bringing them together in order to create apprenticeship programs so people can be funneled and fueled to high-paying jobs. We can work with our unions. We can work with also private industry, grocers, in order to mentor entrepreneur opportunities. We need to make sure that we are ridding the community of food deserts. People shouldn't have to eat out of a liquor store or a gas station. We have to make sure that we're improving the quality of education in the community. Truancy is at an all-time high. We don't just need a builder. We need to make sure that we have somebody in there that can heal the hurt that has been inflicted on the citizens of Detroit. And I have done that, and I can continue to do that.
Fred Durhal.
Thank you. So what I would say is this, promises and platitude comes with a price tag, right? You gotta have an actual plan. We can sit up here and we can talk philosophically of what we need to do for the city of Detroit. And you can tell a lot about what a person's gonna do by what they've done. I walked into a city council district that did not have much development. We had 0 rec centers. We had nothing happening on our commercial corridors. We couldn't remember the last time we had new jobs coming there. And now we've got 2 new recreation centers coming. One, a partnership, $20 million with the Detroit Pistons, Tom Gores and Ern. Tell them, thank them for that. $8.5 million right on Dexter Avenue, Stephen. And if you haven't been to Dexter Avenue lately, I invite you to go down there. We're rebuilding Dexter. We're putting housing on Dexter. We've got a new streetscape on Dexter. And we're going to continue that type of growth across the city. But the way that you do that is to create vibrant commercial corridors here in the city of Detroit. We're going to create a corridor improvement authority that will allow us to create walkable neighborhoods where residents have access to groceries, as well as retail and other amenities that they need in the city of Detroit, and will be a catalyst for small business.
Okay, Saunteel.
Thank you. Yes, again, we need to be intentional. So we would create a strategic master plan for the entire city that accounts for each of the 7 districts. And we will work with business and the community to decide what the commercial districts should look like in each of those 7 districts. So if in District 1 they decide we want 2 beauty salons, a grocery store, and a community center, we will work with them to build those things, and then we will offer incentives to developers to come and build those within the corridors. So we need the commercial corridors, but we also need office parks around our city so that small businesses, startups who need office space and can't afford space downtown, midtown, or Corktown have a place where they can start their businesses in the neighborhoods. And then I just want to agree that past performance is a great indicator of future performance. Even in the midst of the bankruptcy, when I served as a member and president of City Council, I was able to pass over 80 ordinances that generated over 10,000 jobs in the city of Detroit.
Okay, rebuttals for this question. Solomon Kinloch, you're first. 30 seconds.
Downtown, Dexter, specifics. Talk to the people in the neighborhood and see whether or not they agree with the past performance. It doesn't matter how experienced you are if your experiences don't change the experiences of the people that live in this city. It's not about us. That's what we got to remember. It's about the people we are elected to serve.
Fred Durhal?
Well, I disagree. Experience is important. We are in a critical time here in the city of Detroit, and we cannot turn that over to someone who has to have on-the-job training. When we talk about the city of Detroit and you talk about experience and having boots on the ground, you have to be able to have a plan. Listen, folks are tired of the rhetoric. They want to see this city move forward and somebody that has a plan. We've enjoyed growth over the past 10 years here in the city of Detroit, and our businesses and our residents are expecting us to continue that. And that's not going to happen by words. It's going to happen by actions.
Time. And I believe that's the first shots fired.
Yeah.
There's the fireworks.
Keep it,
Can I get my rebuttal?
keep it civil. Keep it civil.
Can I get my
That's
rebuttal?
just me making a joke.
Well,
Until you're next.
I'm on 45 seconds, ain't I?
You've had your
You've
rebuttal.
had your rebuttal.
Oh, well, he fired.
Well, we,
Fireworks.
I'll give you 30 seconds. to answer. Go ahead.
Well, since I'm the
No, I don't think we can do that.
okay.
I don't think we can even do that, Steve.
Okay, I'm just talking about.
No, you've had your time.
right. Okay.
You'll get your time
come back.
again
All right.
to.
All right.
All right. You gotta.
Don't jump on my friend here.
Hey.
Don't jump on my friend here.
We are going to stick to the rules in this debate,
All right.
or we are going to the House.
I shouldn't have
Saunteel?
opened that door. Saunteel, it is your turn.
Well,
Thank
I'll finish it when I get to the general.
Okay,
There
that's
you
fine.
go.
That's fine. Saunteel, you go ahead.
Gotta get
It's
there
your
first.
turn.
I will just say, I agree that experience is important. Our city is at a very critical time, and if we want to see the progress continue, we need a mayor who will be ready on day one. And we need a mayor who knows what it's like to be a CEO. Legislative experience and experience as an executive will come in handy on day one. So I look forward to working with everybody to make it happen.
So I'm going to refresh the rules for both you all and
My partner, right?
We'll get 1 minute and then a 30-second rebuttal. We got a lot of questions to get through. We don't want to go spend too much time on any one issue. We have so many to cover for the folks here. This next question goes to James Craig, Mary Sheffield, and Saunteel Jenkins. Crime has plagued this city for decades, and while the rates are going down, I think we'd all agree there's still too much violence in the city. If elected, what would you add to the current strategies, and what might you walk away from?
And thank you for that question. Certainly, I spent 8 years. I came at a time where, crime was at an all-time high. I talk about carjackings. The city was desensitized. 800 carjackings that first year. Only till my last full year, we went down to just at 200. I will continue to focus on building the work we started on my watch in the neighborhoods, neighborhood policing, that builds trust. But it's one thing for me to get up and say, okay, we've had the lowest number of homicides since the 60s. Detroit was 1.5 million. In the 60s, we had 6,500 police officers. But when you talk to folks in the community, what drives them the most is the perception of crime. I can't tell you how many times during my departure now 3 years ago, people have come and said, things have changed. We wish you were back, Chief. And the reason why is because, well, that's true. It is true. It's a fact. Because we did something that hadn't been done in the past. We changed the trajectory of crime.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Sheffield, Mary Sheffield.
Mary, you're next.
I'm trying to wait to.
You can laugh.
Mary, it's your turn, Mary.
It's a little.
What's going on?
Go ahead, Mary.
So as it relates to public safety, my approach has always been, first of all, we have to address it holistically, that you cannot police your way out of crime. We do have a strong Detroit Police Department. I would just say on public record that I love our chief, Chief Bettison. I will keep him as the chief of police. He's phenomenal. We're going to continue to invest in community policing, ensuring that we have more presence in our neighborhoods, that we're reducing response times, that we're building trust between community, that police officers are not just present when something happens, but actually building that partnership and that trust. But then also we have to continue to invest in the prevention of gun violence, diversion programs, more mentorship, youth employment, internships, recreation, all of the things that prevent crime from taking place in the first place. And then also we need a robust mental health strategy, partnering with DWIN, who I can't wait to continue to work with James White on, to ensure that we're addressing people who have mental health crises, that they get the treatment that they need, or not arrested for things in which they need actual treatment for. So I think you have to address it from two angles. The holistic approach is not just policing our way out of it, but the human perspective is also addressing the root causes of why violence even starts in the first place, and that's mental health, jobs, education, etc. Also, I would love to continue with the effort that Council has started, which is creating an Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which will address gun violence as a public health crisis, which will allow for additional funding as well.
That's your time. Thank you.
Yep.
Saunteel.
Thank you. As a social worker, I'm really glad to know that folks have actually read my literature and my website, because my plan on crime talks about the fact that we can't police our way out of it. We have to address it through prevention. And I have lost someone very close to me to gun violence. I've lost my 14-year-old brother to gun violence. So I know firsthand the impact of having too many guns on the streets. I know firsthand the impact of what happens when our youth don't have hope and don't have opportunities. So yes, it's about creating safe spaces and places for our kids after school and during the most dangerous hours of the day, which are 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. We need to partner with the schools to create job opportunities and career pathways for people from cradle to career and beyond. And yes, we need community policing to be a philosophy, not just a few officers walking the beat, not just a division of the department. It has to be a holistic
Thank you, Saunteel.
philosophy.
So, next, James Craig, 30-second rebuttal.
I'll just say, clearly, we talk about trust. When I got here in 2013, there was absolutely no trust in the Detroit Police Department. However, it changed. It changed because we start working very deep in our communities and building those kind of relationships. What does a 1-hour response time to 911 translate to? That's not trust. People didn't believe that. People want law enforcement to do policing. I'm not saying police your way out of the problem or arrest your way out of the problem, but we have to take action.
Thank you,
That's your
sir.
time. Mary?
Just a quick rebuttal. You know, this is personal to me as well. It's more than just reading a website. You know, I think about Lamar Glenn, who was an 11-year-old girl on the west side of Detroit who was shot and killed in her home. I went to her funeral, I spoke. Those who know me in Detroit on the ground here know that I have been on the front line as it relates to gun violence in this city, at funerals, at vigils. And so anytime a child in Detroit loses their life to gun violence, it's personal to me. And it should be personal to everyone. And so the work around gun violence has been consistent my entire 12 years, whether it's gun buybacks, whether it's ensuring that we're building bridges between community and law enforcement, and that work will continue as mayor.
Saunteel?
Sure, I've spent my entire life on the ground serving the most vulnerable and at-risk youth and adults in the city of Detroit, whether it was working with adjudicated youth as my first job out of grad school or working with men who were homeless and addicted to turn their lives around. I'm committed, I've been committed, and that won't change anytime soon.
Okay, in the next round, we're going to ask a specific question to each of the candidates. We're going to start with Mary Sheffield. You're a part of a really important city legacy in progressive politics and activism in Detroit, but if elected, you would have at least 3 years to deal with a deeply conservative Trump administration in Washington. Tell us about your strategy trying to keep the city on track.
So I know how to work with all different types of people. I know how to find common ground. I think it's important to mention that when we think about one of the ordinances that most developers know in here, which is called the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, that was done by bipartisan support. Me going to Lansing and getting support from both sides of the aisles to get that thing done for Detroit, which now has paved the way to create $1 billion in the creation and preservation of affordable housing in our city. And so I say that I am not intimidated. I come from a legacy of fighters, and it's really about bringing resources back to Detroit, improving the quality of life for Detroiters. And so my whole vision and my goal there is to build partnerships, build coalitions, but more importantly, to find common ground so that I can benefit and bring resources back to the city of Detroit. I do believe that the climate has changed, and we have to be innovative in how we start looking at diversifying our revenues, bringing in new revenue to Detroit to fund the myriad of programs and priorities that we have that typically have been funded by the federal government, which is why I have been very adamant about looking at resources and ways to bring in more revenue to Detroit. But again, I'm ready to work with whomever across the aisle. That work has started already to date and will continue to do so as mayor.
Thank you. James Craig, other than me, you're probably the only conservative on this stage.
I was waiting for this question.
And a Republican to boot.
Right.
How will your political viewpoint, your political orientation, make you a different sort of mayor than perhaps the other four folks on this stage?
Well, as I like to always say, I'm a Detroiter first. I was born here. Yes, I've been a conservative most of my life. In fact, I was a conservative Democrat, and I made the shift. I have, as police chief, not in one but 3 cities, always worked in Democrat-run cities, very effectively, I might add. Nothing changes as mayor. But a bonus point for me, and I'll say it, we can talk about I'm going to work across the aisle, but the reality is I have a relationship with this White House, and I will leverage that relationship because it's not about me, it's not about the president, it's about the city of Detroit. And let's face it, next year when we run out of ARPA funds, we are going to need federal dollars.
Fred Durhal, you're next. You have, of course, served in the legislature and more recently on the city council, but you've never had a top leadership role on either of those bodies, and now you want to be the city's chief executive. Talk about where you draw the experiences that you'll need to be able to make those decisions in that top office in the city.
Yeah, first term in the Michigan legislature, I came in as the assistant Democratic leader of the House. Second term, the ranking Dem on House Appropriations and the minority vice chair, where we had a body of legislators on there, and we were passing the state's budget. On Detroit City Council, I chair a numerous task force, the Gun Violence Task Force, the Retiree Task Force, the Disability Task Force, as well as the Returning Citizens Task Force. I chair Budget, Finance, and Audit, and I'm vice chair of Planning. So when we talk about leadership, it is specifically about delivering. And what we are talking about relative to experience, when we move Detroit forward, again, whether it's property tax reform or any other policy that's going to have to come through Lansing, you got to have relationships up there. Folks talk about working across the aisle. We've got a proven track record of doing it. We passed a public act in a Republican-led legislature, or trifecta. People are getting tired of that term nowadays. But we got it done and got it across the finish line. We delivered while we were in Lansing for revenue sharing, protected our schools, and ensured that we delivered vital programs for the city of Detroit.
Solomon Kinloch, you are the pastor of a very large church. You want to be mayor of a very large city. They're both enormously challenging jobs. You say you want to continue to run your church while you're running the city. How can you do that without shortchanging either your congregation or your constituents?
Well, I would serve as a full-time mayor for the city of Detroit. I would be mayor of Detroit 2.0, just like the mayor's office. I don't run the church alone. There's an executive team that's already in place that will run the day-to-day responsibilities of the church. And I will go to church on Sunday, not just because that's something I do as my schedule permits. That's what I believe. And when I'm there, I will preach. Eddie Gall says something in his book entitled, "We have to become the type of leaders we're looking for." 58% of the people polled in a recent poll said they didn't believe that institutional politicians were taking their concerns into consideration. At some point, we got to operate with the fierce urgency of right now, in the words of Dr. King, and stop waiting on other people to do it. We got to stand up and do it for ourselves. If they could have done it, they would have done it. Evidently, they can't do it, so somebody else need to get out of the stands and get on the field and do it for ourselves.
Okay. Next question to...
No rebuttal.
All right. Come on. Next question to Saunteel Jenkins. Last time you were on city council, you left suddenly. Can you talk about why you left, leaving voters without the representative they had elected, and how you've come to think about the obligations of public office since then?
Yeah, sure. When I was on city council, I was there during the toughest economic times in this city's history. It was during the bankruptcy. I was there, I served, I worked to get the city out of bankruptcy. I worked on the plan of adjustment, and my last day at council was the date that we were in federal court announcing that we were exiting bankruptcy. We had a plan in place that would not be changed for the next 10 years, no matter who was on council. So I did something that's actually very similar to what our current mayor did. I left my elected position and went to serve as CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization that was serving some of the most vulnerable citizens across the state of Michigan. And over the past 10 years, I provided over $100 million in assistance to the most vulnerable families in the city of Detroit and across the state. So I'm proud of the work I've done, and as a result, I'm even more prepared to be mayor on day one.
Okay.
Thank you.
30-second rebuttals. First to Mary Sheffield.
I've been here. I've done the work. I think exiting out of bankruptcy is really one of the most important times. We had a lot of sacrifices that were made, and now the next phase of that was really rebuilding Detroit. And so the tough work was done. And I'm very proud of the partnerships that we formed, the work that we've done. And now I just believe that it's really about building upon that foundation, ensuring that it goes a bit deeper. Again, the experience to me is very important. Having that governmental experience, having those relationships day one, I think is important to move the city forward.
Okay. James Craig.
Well, I'll just emphasize the fact that public safety here in Detroit is critically important to me. We talk about some of these political strategies like gun buybacks. Let me just tell you what I feel about a gun buyback. I have never, in my 44 years in policing, seen a criminal turn a gun in. Never. They don't work. It's all political talk. If we're going to talk about something, let's talk about what does work. I'm not talking about mass incarceration. I'm talking about gun backs don't work. It's a comedy show.
That's your time.
Rebuttal?
Solomon Kinloch, you're next.
We have to look at where we are. We are at a crossroad, and we cannot go back. We have to have someone that has a reputation and a history of being a builder. This is not something I'm doing new. This is something I've been doing as a leader. You can be an executive and never be a leader, but you can't be a leader and not be an executive. I have served in both capacities. I have built something that no one can dispute, something that is impactful in this community in a way that we haven't seen in this generation.
And finally, Saunteel Jenkins, 30 seconds.
Experience matters. Experience matters. Where we are in this city today, our next mayor has to know how to keep the buses running on time. Our next mayor has to know how to not only draft a budget and get it passed, our next mayor has to know how to implement a budget and make sure that we stay on the right fiscal trajectory. Our next mayor has to be able to work with business, philanthropy, nonprofits, community groups, citizens in order to continue moving the city forward. I have that experience, and that'll matter for us on day one.
And I did not mean to skip you, but you are next. Fred Durhal.
It's okay. Experience does matter. Here's the thing. We've got to continue building the city of Detroit. And I come from a district that has a tremendous amount of churches. It's not just about building churches. It's about building affordable housing here in the city of Detroit. And you've got to have realistic plans. Our council has built over $1 billion of affordable housing. I sponsored an ordinance that's going to create 1,400 new affordable housing units per year. So when we talk about building and we're talking about some folks who have not got it done, it's easy to say that from the sidelines until you get in there and you have to develop policies that are realistic and not just talk.
Okay, next question.
This question will go to Fred Durhal, Solomon Kinloch, and James Craig. Detroit still has one of the highest poverty rates in the nation, and I think for children, the highest. Could you tell us about your anti-poverty agenda? We'll start with you, Mr. Durhal.
Yeah, so our anti-poverty agenda is simple. We've got to work to create generational wealth and opportunity here in the city of Detroit. Many folks moved to the city of Detroit because of opportunity from Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, because there was opportunity here to do something, get a job, as well as build businesses here in the city of Detroit. So when we're talking about building generational wealth, one of the key ways to do that is to create a path to home ownership. You don't just become wealthy by saving your money. You become wealthy by owning property and owning a piece of the city that you live in so you can have the ability to pass that on from generation to generation. And yes, we still need to focus on the safety net, but here's the problem. Folks talk about creating tons of programs. We already got too many programs that we have that are not efficient, that are not effective. We got to stop working to expand the safety net and pull folks out of the safety net. Create a path where they can own a home. Create a path where they can get a job. Create a path where they can start a business. Those are the things that are important to get folks out of poverty. Then instead of just saying, hey, let's continue to create programs and spend our money doing it.
Thank you. Mr. Kinloch.
Creating a homelessness strike force that will be intense and intentional about addressing poverty. When we saw 3 generations of a family in a car and 2 kids end up dead, we have to make sure that their death is not in vain. And so we have to have affordable housing available to the residents in the city of Detroit. You can't say somebody's making less than $40,000 a year and $1,800 a month is affordable housing. We have to make sure that we're taking care of the people that's already working by increasing their wage and giving them comfortable wage. But also we got to make sure that we are funneling people through workforce development into programs for high-paying jobs. We also got to make sure, my friends, that we are inviting industries into our city that is going to employ people so that they can explore other opportunities that are not available right now.
And Mr. Craig.
Thank you. Again, as I said earlier, expand the middle class, but I'm going to say it like I've said so many times, schools, schools, schools. We cannot move this city forward unless we fix the public schools. Now, I recognize as mayor, we don't control the schools, but certainly we can use our bully pulpit, we can certainly partnership with the schools, and we got to do something about the teachers. You know, when you talk about leadership, one thing that I know for certain, when an organization or any entity, when the morale is down, the people doing the work, in my case, when it was police officers, they don't serve people very well. In the school system, I know this to be factual, the morale of those teachers are down. So how do we expect them to serve the children? And yes, as Pastor Kinloch points out, affordable housing, critical. 44,000, or it might be 46,000, my numbers might be off, are needed. And that's a heavy, heavy lift, but it must be done.
Thanks, sir. Now, in our rebuttal, if you could talk a little bit about how you're going to pay for all of this, starting with Fred Durhal.
Yeah, so again, I said it before, promises and platitudes come with a price tag, okay? So, and my grandmother says no romance without finance, right? So you can be in love with an idea all day, but if you can't fund it, it doesn't matter. And so what we are talking about is utilizing the resources that we have. We hear folks talk about homelessness. We hear folks talking about education. Listen, there is no child that can learn when their stomach is growling, okay? And so when we talk about creating opportunity and eliminating generational poverty by also giving parents a hand up, that is what we have to do here in the city of Detroit. Get folks back to work, create opportunities where they can live affordable housing and own a home.
Yeah.
Solomon Kinloch.
Well, one of the things I do know, although I have not sat on city council, is know that city council don't create the budget. The mayor does. He submits it to the city council and they approve it and stamp it. And so they have the ability to create the budget. They have the ability to put back. It's all about what you prioritize when you're sitting at that table. And we need some people who have different priorities and priority that's in alignment with the people in the community.
James Craig.
Well, I'm going to agree with the pastor again. He's right. I mean, so, okay, thank you for that. You know, it really is about, you know, we talk about children with hungry stomachs that can't learn. It's deeper than that, much deeper than that. And yes, that's a factor, and we can do something about that. But we also need to do something about how our children are educated. I saw it firsthand when Stellantis opened up, and we had 3,500 Detroiters. Many of them couldn't read. They came out of Detroit public schools.
Do we have a rebuttal because he mentioned city council?
No.
Happen to be a member?
No. We don't have time for all that.
No, Fred.
Can I rebut because I used to be a member?
No.
All right.
Go to the next.
Next question. Similar theme. Since the bankruptcy, the city has managed to maintain a balanced budget, but if you look at the amount of federal support it's gotten, there's no way to discount that. $800 million just in the last 4 years. So let's talk about how you would keep the city on a sound fiscal path without that money from Washington, and talk about whether you would look at cuts and how you would go about cutting the budget, or whether you're looking at ways to boost revenues to keep programming in place. Mary, you're up first.
Thank you. So I think it's important to mention that we have revenue estimating conferences twice a year now. This work is already ongoing. We've been preparing the last two past budgets, the transition of ARPA dollars. This is a very serious conversation and one in which I am prepared day one to continue. I am a firm believer, as I said before, that we have to diversify our revenue streams. We have to be innovative in our approach, whether it's a local sales option tax, an entertainment tax, or maybe a half a penny tax that Columbus is doing. But we have to have those serious discussions about how we diversify our revenues in Detroit. And so for me, we have, under my leadership, approved 12 balanced budgets. 11 of them have been surpluses. And so I am very confident in the fiscal discipline and management of myself moving forward as mayor, and ensuring that we have a phenomenal CFO and have the best and the brightest around me to ensure that we have the fiscal discipline that's needed moving forward in Detroit. If cost savings could be achieved within various departments, I think we should look at that. But more importantly, it's going to be about bringing more revenue into the city of Detroit to fund the myriad of programs and
That's
priorities
your time.
that we
Thank
have.
you.
Yep. Saunteel Jenkins, you're up next.
Thank you. And it's really important that we point out that not only will over $800 million in federal revenue be gone, we'll also be paying pension payments that were delayed for over 10 years. The grand bargain payments that have been coming to the city will end under our next mayor. So the next mayor will face a completely different financial reality than our current mayor has faced. So we'll have to look at everything. We can't cut our way out of this, but we have to continue. We have to find ways to grow our economy as well. One of the things that I would do is have a chief growth officer in my administration, and their focus will be not only how to grow business and industries in the city of Detroit, but how do we continue to grow our population? Because if our population is growing, that means that our tax base is also growing. But we definitely have to go into office and be ready to consider everything and all options to make sure that we continue moving forward in a fiscally sound way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Durhal, you're next.
Yeah, so we participated in 4 balanced budgets on the state level, and now 4 balanced budgets now dealing here at Detroit City Council. And here's the thing. When we talk about moving this city forward, as they would say, you cannot have Cadillac taste and Ford money. We're going to hear lots of plans here. No disrespect to Ford if you're in the room. I'm sorry. But
We're long.
what I would say is that, man, the Ford drivers are killing me today. What I would say is this. We have to maintain that level of discipline here that we've seen over these past years in our budget cycle. We've got to examine the efficacy and the efficiency of our departments and some of those programs that were created during ARPA and make sure that we transfer some of those employees over, which we've started that process so they don't lose their jobs. We talk about pension payments. The council has done a great job in investing in the Retiree Protection Fund. We've got to keep that up as well. But we also have to look at how we lower property taxes and create revenue by creating a blight tax, which we're going to implement, as well as a speculator tax for folks who are sitting on land that's underdeveloped and blighted.
Okay, rebuttals, beginning with Mary Sheffield, 30 seconds.
So I would just, maintain my position that under my leadership, serving on the council for the last 12 years, we've maintained fiscal discipline. That's going to be very important. There's a lot of priorities, a lot of ideas, but we have to ensure that we remain in a financial state that is fiscally sound. Again, moving forward in Detroit, we cannot rely on our 4 traditional methods of revenue. We have to exceed that by diversifying our revenues and looking into different alternatives. I am going to continue to aggressively go after federal funding with our state and local partners as well.
Thank you.
Saunteel Jenkins.
Thank you. I just want to point out that legally, we're required to pass a balanced budget. Decades of balanced budgets were passed in the city of Detroit as we were working our way up to bankruptcy. So saying that that balanced budgets were passed under your leadership does not necessarily mean that you're a good fiscal leader. And I do give credit because over the last several years, the mayor has run a tight fiscal ship And I applaud the council members who
That's your
showed
time.
great fiscal discipline. But we're legally required to pass a balanced
you.
budget.
That's
That's
your
not a great feat.
They haven't.
Thank you.
They haven't.
30 seconds to Fred Durhal.
And just to backtrack a little bit, we heard about how the mayor proposes the budget. The old adage is that the executive branch proposes the budget, but the legislative branch disposes of the budget. And they have the ability to craft it and create it. And we've done a great job of that on Detroit City Council. But when we talk about growing revenues, it's important to realize while we're examining all of these options, we talk about a hotel tax. Guess what? Detroit doesn't have enough hotels yet to be able to generate enough funding to be able to do that. We talk about an amusement tax, a $3 ticket surcharge, which has been found that will only generate $8 to $10 million per year. That's not enough funding to move this city forward. And so as we continue to grow this city and attract
Thank you,
revenue
sir.
here,
That's
we've got to
your
look
time.
at feasible options.
Thank
I just
you,
want to be clear,
sir.
those specifics that were just mentioned were never indicated by myself.
Yes, well, we
so-
got to move to the
Okay,
next
thank you.
question, and it will go to Solomon Kinloch, James Craig, and Mary Sheffield. The reconstruction, or what to do next with I-375 has divided the city about as much as the original construction did way back when. What do you think that project should look like? Do you support it, or should the switch from freeway to boulevard be scrapped altogether?
One of the things I think we must continue to do, and that's why my administration would be a we administration and not a me administration. We need to stop inviting constituents to the table after we come up with a plan. They need to be a part of the creation of the plan. And so the community need to be a part to suggest what they believe they want their city to look like. I believe that we need to start there, not just with I-375, but I believe we need to start there as we look at how we reimagine what the entire city of Detroit looks like. Just imagine if we brought our corporate leaders together along with our union leaders, our community leaders, our community activists, and all of our corporate stakeholders to the table in order to convene a conversation of what they think is best in the community. Instead of coming in the community lording what we want over them, let them decide what they think is best for I-375.
Thank you. James Craig.
I would just simply say, is I-375 necessary to improve or do what they're talking about doing? I have a concern, especially when we look ahead and at our budgetary situation. MyCap reported that we may have a $300 million shortfall right now. And so is this what we really want to do? As mayor, one of the first things I will do is call for an independent forensic review of the budget, but not just do it, report out on it, and then whatever recommendations follow that, and continue to, in a transparent way, advise the public of it. I came here when the city went through bankruptcy. I saw the devastation. And so is this what we really want to do right now? And when we talk about fiscal responsibility, let's talk about the riverfront conservatively. Let's talk about that for a moment. $40 million. And oh, by the way, boards are not just...
That's your time.
That's your time. You can come back to that in your rebuttal.
Oh, my. Oh, my. I was on the road.
Sir, if you've got,
Rebuttal.
if you got something
brought it
you
up
want
at
the
the
people
end.
to hear, say it
Rebuttal.
first. Mary Sheffield.
Is this a rebuttal or is it the response?
No, this is yours.
This is your time.
Okay, so as it relates to I-375, historically, we know what the freeway did to strip away generational wealth from black communities, the Black Bottom, Paradise Valley. And I think what I've heard overwhelmingly is there's a lack of trust and there's been a lack of engagement to address that issue. Reparative justice, there's 30 acres of land that will be made available. Who has access to that land? And then also the businesses that are going to be heavily impacted, who oftentimes feel as if once this freeway comes about and constructions begin, that their business will be devastated. And so I do have several concerns, and I think more conversations need to take place around I-375 and real conversations about how we repair the harm that was caused from the freeway that displaced Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. I want to address the Riverfront Conservancy.
You get a chance to here in a minute.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So we're going to go to the rebuttals. And,
Rebuttals.
you know, maybe you can talk about the Riverfront Conservancy, but also the idea of reparative justice in this project, starting with Solomon Kinloch.
Well, one of the things we need to continue to do, as I alluded to earlier, when we started talking about community conversations, we have to make sure that we are convening those tables where people can participate. When we have conversations where we talk about experiences and things like that, we have to be cautious and careful because it rings with classism, it rings with elitism, it rings with a lack of consciousness of the fact that we are just as a person just as other people. And we can't help people we think we better than.
Thank you, sir.
James Craig?
Yeah, now's your chance.
Yes, I'll say it again. I appreciate that. $40 million, clearly not acceptable. When you sit on a board, and I have sat on several corporate boards, you are responsible. This is not a superficial role. You take a responsibility of oversight. So I'm not saying the board did anything wrong, but I think it warrants a closer examination to find out what went wrong. Because when we're talking about fiscal leadership and fiscal responsibility, something's lacking there. I'm sorry. It just is.
So I just want to, you're talking about the
30 seconds.
Riverfront Conservancy, a 44-member board. I am not a part of the audit committee or the finance committee. All of the documents were altered. The public documents that were put online and submitted to the board at public meetings were all altered. No one knew what was going on. The most important thing is that the individual who did that was prosecuted to the farther extent of the law. And in that situation, we now know, and for me as a leader, the importance of oversight and more control as it relates to fiscal management. And so to insinuate that I in any way had anything to do with someone stealing $40 million from the Conservancy, I think is disingenuous at its best. And I will say whatever documents were given to us as a board in the public, because they were posted online, were altered. They were altered.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next question goes to Mary Sheffield, Saunteel Jenkins, and Fred the next question goes to Saunteel Jenkins, Fred Durhal, and Solomon Kinloch. The mayor does not have direct control of schools in the city, but the mayor can have an effect through speech and action on the education agenda. Let's talk about how you would use that bully pulpit. Saunteel Jenkins.
Yes, absolutely. As the mayor, I would use the mayor's office to address what I've often called social determinants to education. And many of them are the same as the social determinants to health. It is whether or not a child has a roof over their head. Right now, there's an estimated 3,000 children in DPS who are homeless. How can you learn if you're sleeping in a car? How can you learn if you don't have lights in your house or food in your refrigerator? So the mayor would be working with nonprofits, would be working directly with the schools and with philanthropy to improve the conditions.
City Council and other stakeholders to weigh in and work to create a path that already works. You've heard me say this, we have to create a path that leads to colleges and careers and not cages and caskets here in the city of Detroit. And one of the ways that you do that is develop an individualized learning plan for each student starting early. We've seen it happen in Minnesota, which they've had success and it results in their education. But we start there, and so we know where our children are. We know that from these beginning ages, by the time they get to third grade, they're learning to read. Beyond that, they are reading to learn. And so when we track this education and develop the metrics and the data, and we take it all the way to 12th grade, we should know if our students are getting ready to go to college, if they want to be entrepreneurs, or if they're going to go into our skilled trades, which we're going to see a total amount of thousands of vacancies.
Thank you, sir.
For those skilled trade jobs.
Solomon?
I do believe that we got to be intentional about the metrics that we use to move the momentum and what we want to achieve in our school systems with intentionality. I believe that our administration needs to put in a chief educational officer, and that chief educational officer would work in cooperation with the superintendent and the school board to make sure that the city is providing those supplemental resources that are needed in order to make sure children can show up to school healthy and whole. We got to look at and examine all of the systems around a child that's filled and populated with disparity and inequity. Whether you talk about housing, whether you talk about sustainability of jobs so that parents can provide for their children, whether you talk about mental health, whether you talk about groceries, we have to make sure that we're partnering with the district to make sure that our children have the resources they need to learn.
30-second rebuttals, beginning with Saunteel Jenkins.
Yes, the partnership needs to be all-inclusive. The thing that the mayor can do is bring stakeholders together in a way that others may not be able to. So the mayor's office would be bringing stakeholders together to ensure that we're addressing all of the issues. And then we also need to be partnering on, as we go back to crime and crime prevention, we should be partnering on youth programs to create career pathways as well as those after-school programs and leveraging our resources. The city's resources are strapped, the school's resources are strapped, so we should leverage our resources for cost sharing and to provide staffing and programming for youth.
Thank you.
Fred Durhal.
Yeah, the communication and relationships, they have to improve. We will agree with that. But we also, you have to use your bully pulpit as a mayor to go to Lansing where true reform happens on education. City council can't make laws on education. The mayor can't move the needle either. So you have to go to Lansing and say, hey, we are the largest city in the state. And so goes Detroit, so goes the state of Michigan. If we want to be more competitive, we've got to put more resources into education. So even when I was in the legislature, we put $2.5 million into reading programs. We got to continue doing things like that to ensure that our kids have the resources they need.
That brings to an end our.
No, Solomon Kinloch has a 30-second rebuttal.
I get a
Okay,
rebuttal.
sorry.
Why are we still talking about this? At some point, we got to stop talking and doing. We can't continue to allow our children to be used as guinea pigs while we try to figure it out. At some point, we got to understand that time is up. We gave you time to do it. It's time for somebody else to get an opportunity to do what we promised our citizens and what they're entitled to.
Thank you.
Okay, we've ended the round of questions and have come up to the time for closing statements. Each candidate will get 45 seconds. We're going to go in reverse order from the beginning. So James Craig, you're up first.
Thank you. As I indicated throughout this session, 44 years of public service as a public servant, also serving and leading 3 police departments, including Detroit, at a very critical time. I firmly believe that not only do we need to have a mayor who has executive leadership experience, but someone who can manage a crisis. We should never forget that one of the primary responsibilities for a president, a governor, and a mayor is the safety of the people. The ability to handle a crisis and make decisions in real time. As it's already been talked about, this cannot be on-the-job training. There's no book for this. You need someone who can plug in and do it right and do it the first time.
Thank you, sir.
Fred Durhal, you're next.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We're at a critical point in the history of the city of Detroit. We have seen Detroit's renaissance grow over the past decade. And I will say this, we cannot afford to go backwards. And in order to continue that growth, you need experienced leadership. You are going to need someone who knows how to navigate Lansing, somebody that knows how to navigate Detroit, to include property tax reform, to include education, to include increasing public safety, to include when we talk about building regional transit here in the city of Detroit to push us to be the world-class city that I know that we can be. We've got to stay the course and continue that growth. And you cannot put somebody in there who is a rookie, who has no experience, that comes in, that again will undo all of the progress that we have made. We are going to continue to put Detroit forward because we deliver for Detroit.
Saunteel Jenkins, you're next.
Listen, if you've enjoyed the progress and improvements in city services that you've seen over the past decade, and you want to see it continue, I'm your candidate. If you felt unseen, unheard, or left out, I'm your candidate. If you're looking for someone with a proven track record of working on the ground with the community and business to get results, I'm your candidate. If you want to see the growth and prosperity in Detroit continue downtown and in neighborhoods, I am your candidate. If you want a mayor with the experience and track record to be ready on day one, then I'm asking for your support. I'm Saunteel Jenkins. I'm built for this. You are built for this. We are built for this.
That's your
So together,
Thank
let's
you, ma'am.
do
We
this.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Solomon Kinloch.
I must agree that we don't need to go backwards, but at the same time, we don't need to be stalled, and we can't be stuck, and we can't stay where we are. I'm a builder. I'm a builder, and I've been building for the last 27 years. And I didn't just build a church. I built doctors. I built lawyers. I helped build judges. I helped send kids to school when government didn't show up and didn't do their part. Solomon Kinloch and Triumph Church stepped up and did our part. For 27 years, I've been fighting for the residents in the city of Detroit. And on election day, they gonna talk and show you who has changed their experiences because of his experience.
Mary?
Thank you. Let me say thank you for the opportunity. It has been the absolute honor of my life to serve as the chair of this body and being a partner in the growth and transformation of Detroit. I could not do this work alone, and so I'm looking forward to the continued partnership with each and every one of you. As your next mayor, with the support of you all, I will make sure that Detroit is the best place in America to grow and start a business. We will ensure that housing is affordable and there is a path to home ownership. We will ensure that our educational system is improved, that our neighborhoods are invested in walkable and vibrant, and that our communities are safe. I have a track record of partnerships, of coalitions, of getting things done for Detroit. I believe that business needs people and people need business. And my whole career has bridged those two together.
Thank you. We
deliver for the
appreciate it.
city.
But that's it for our debate tonight. I want to thank the thanks our candidates. Thank you for your civility and your cooperation, and to the Detroit Regional Chamber for hosting.